Welcome to the Master Your Mindset and Metabolism podcast. I'm your host, Kelly Dunlap, creator of kellydunlap.com. I am a mindset and metabolism specialist who helps women reprioritize their health, balance their hormones, and reboot their metabolism so they can regain their energy, finally lose the weight, and feel confident in their own skin. I help women break up with the start-over syndrome, all or nothing mindset, get them off the diet wagon so they can create a consistent plan for a sustainable, healthy lifestyle free of diets. In this podcast, we will talk about all the things mindset, metabolism, the role our hormones play in all of this, and how to reboot your mindset and metabolism so you can finally step into your new empowered life. Thank you so much for being here and pressing play. Now let's begin. Hey guys, Kelly here. Welcome. I'm so happy to have you here on this episode. So on today's episode, I am having a lovely conversation with my long time and dear friend, Nikki K. And Nikki and I go way back to when we worked together at a gym called Fitness USA. There used to be a chain of them. I think they were in like Michigan, Indiana, and California, something like that. Anyway, that's where we met, and we've been friends forever. And the interesting thing is that, you know, we were dear friends and still are, of course, but there was, you know, several years where we really didn't, see each other or communicate or what have you. But no surprise to me, we were both working on ourselves very, very intently as far as, you know, healing and doing our inner work and growth and such. And we had, you know, really been brought back together this last year. And I recently had a couple of Akashic readings done by Nikki, and she's very, very talented. And it was a really cool experience. And so I had said to her, hey, you know, will you please, do a podcast episode with me, because I really want to share your talent with my audience, and I think that you could really help a lot of people. So we recorded this episode, and it was really a lovely conversation. She and I could probably talk for hours, and I actually got a little emotional during this episode, and it was just really a powerful conversation. So I'm super excited for you to be here and to have a listen. So without further ado, here's the episode. Hey guys, Kelly here. I'm so excited to have my very, very, very long time dear friend, Nikki K. with me today. Nikki is a spiritual mentor and Akashic Records reader, and she's fabulous at it, by the way, because I had her do a reading for me, actually a couple of them. And what she does is she truly helps to guide you back into your inner intuition and your inner wisdom. And she's also getting ready to write a book, which I think is going to be absolutely fantastic. Can't wait for that to come out. But I asked Nikki to be a guest with me today because I know that between the two of us and the conversation that we will have, it will be so much fun. But more importantly, I just want to share her gifts with you because she's so amazingly talented. And I wanted to also talk about the reading that I had with her and how it was super insightful. And it just helped to give me this, I don't know, like an internal hug or just like support that I really needed, and to kind of get that inner knowing, right? And help. And it was just like, stay the course, keep on going. You're doing the right thing. So anyway, it was just awesome. And I wanted to share her. So Nikki, thank you so much for being here, my friend.
Thank you, Kelly, for having me. That is a wonderful intro. Like, I just feel like a rock star after all that. But thank you.
Very, very talented. And so Nikki and I go back well over 20 years. We used to work together in the fitness industry. We were both in the, personal training and sales and, all the things. And we had so many good times. And it's interesting, when our friendship began all those years ago, we've always remained close. It's not like we were like, hanging out every weekend or anything like that, but she was always a near and dear friend. And, we would visit each other along the years. And she's one of those friends in my book where it's like, you don't see them very often, but they hold that special place. And it's just like you just pick up right where you leave off. And a couple years ago, I had my friend Ashley Brianna Eve on a podcast, and I think Nikki had picked up that episode and really enjoyed it. And then Nikki and I ended up in one of Ashley's like mini mastermind kind of things, which was no coincidence there.
No, I don't believe in coincidences.
Not at all. So that was actually really super cool. And so we both have been over these, last 20 years have both been always into bettering ourselves, but it's just so cool that we've both have been working on our inner peace and inner knowing and our growth on that spiritual level. Not even really being aware of it, because it's not like we were hanging out with each other, but it was kind of cool to see that we were both rising and both having those common interests and things. So, and I know, Nikki has shared some, very personal stories, with me. And, I had even asked her before I had, hit the record button, hey, would it be okay if we touch on this? Because I've always admired her strength, through a lot of, the things that had gone on in her childhood. And she said, oh my goodness, absolutely. That she'd be willing to share it, because it is part of her story, who she is and who she is becoming and her gifts. Right. So I remember when we worked together at the gym, we would, sit in the back room, we would talk, we'd have these conversations, and I'll talk about a couple of things. So I remember you sharing one story about your childhood, and I just started to cry. I was like, oh my gosh, it was just so heartbreaking to me, and I just remember looking at you with just such admiration, thinking, and look at that, she talks about how her and her husband are going to have these multi-businesses, and she's just so driven. And now here we are 20 years later, and those businesses have come to fruition, and it was like, she meant what she said, and she was just so driven. So when you were, in that time, like if we go back to that time, when we would have those conversations and you had that driver, do you think that it was the childhood experiences that you had that just was just such that lighthouse for you to kind of move up and out of it? Like, where do you think that childhood abuse had its purpose for you now that you're able to look back at things now, if that makes sense?
Well, for me, so I've always felt like a lone wolf because, so going back to the abuse and my upbringing, my mother died when I was 10 months old. And I never had, even as an infant, the support of a loving family to help raise me and guide me. It was something that I had to really do on my own and to survive on my own. I had to tap into inner strength, even as a child. And I knew that anything that happened in my life, I would have to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And so I had this drive as a young child to be independent. And I had this vision of being a business owner, being an entrepreneur, being a very strong, successful entrepreneur, because there was also a part of me that I didn't want other people telling me what to do, because that had led me astray in the past. So as I grew up, I had this strong burning desire to be on my own, to be independent, and to be wildly successful. Obviously, as a teenager, I didn't know what that looked like. I just had this burning desire within my heart to do that. And so I grew up very independently. I was in the foster care system starting at 5 years old. And it was bounced from house to house. I was in 7 different foster homes between the age of 5 and the age of 10. I finally was adopted at the age of 10 with a family. So I have 3 sisters. When we were put in the foster care system, we were all split up. So I had nobody. I was entering these homes, not knowing these parents, not knowing the children of these parents and the family and friends of these parents. I was on my own. So it was really a survival technique for me to just learn how to keep myself safe and how to take care of myself. And so my sisters and I were separated. We're all in different foster care homes. And at the age of 10, I was finally placed in a home with my older sister, Miranda. And my dad gave up rights to us. So we were then adopted by this family. And this family was not loving, it was not caring, it was a foster care business. So it was more like a foster care child factory. How many kids can we bring in to make more money out of the system? And so even with that, feeling like at the age of 10, God, I finally belong to a family. I'm not going to bounce around, but really not finding my place or feeling at home within that family. So again, just having to fend for myself and just be independent within myself just created this drive to do things on my own. And for me, in my head, that was always entrepreneurship. And so I met my husband when I was 15. We were in high school. We were high school sweethearts. I ended up moving out of my adopted family's home at 17. I was waiting for a phone call from my parents, and the phone call never came. And again, it was just this sense of not belonging and not being loved and being abandoned once again by adults. And so I moved in with my husband, and he is very, very driven. He is also has a huge entrepreneurial mindset, and he's also been like that since he was, 10, 11 years old. So together we built this life. And we always had this drive of go, 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 work, work, anything you want in life. You have to work for, you have to hustle for, you have to push yourself beyond extremes. And that's what we did at a young age. We moved out. I graduated from high school. We bought our first home, and we worked. We went to school full time, and I worked with you at Fitness USA, which feels like lifetimes ago.
Yeah.
It really does. But through these experiences, you evolve as a person. And I've always really been into self-help. Even as a teenager, I just wanted to dig into how I can improve myself, how I can make myself better. And even now, just recently looking back at those times, I think there was a sense of me that was wanting to fix what I felt was broken within me. But at the time, I didn't know that. But it was this drive to continuing down this path of becoming a better person. And that drive led me into complete burnout and exhaustion. And when I decided to have kids at the age of 25, I got pregnant with my first daughter. My husband worked all the time. He was hustling. We had multiple different companies that we were running together. I was working from home. And I was completely fried out, and which led me at the age of 30 into the hospital. I have lifelong asthma, and I've always struggled with asthma. I've been in the hospital probably 50 times with asthma over my life, having severe asthma attacks. This time, I almost died. I was put on life support. I was on a ventilator. I was in the ICU for 10 days. And at the time, my kids were 1 and 3 years of age. And it was my burnout and my hustle and my drive that led me into that hospital, into that. I had a near-death experience. And I came out of that experience feeling just shattered and not really knowing, like, who am I? Why am I here? What the fuck am I doing here? What is this all about? I'm working so hard. And slowly there was this evolution of me going into more deeper work than just the surface self-help and starting to discover who I am. And it was actually my yoga practice that led me into that. So I used to be a huge fitness buff, and it was like the harder, the faster, the longer, the better.
Yeah.
And it was just that adrenaline. And my girlfriend kept telling me, because she knew I had struggled with asthma, and she said, you have to try yoga. You have to try yoga. And I was like, that's like airy fairy shit that I don't really care to do. Like, I don't have time for that.
Yeah.
And so I guess it's fate, because I don't believe in coincidences, or it's my spirit guides, my helping team that led me into my first yoga class. And I can remember I was so extremely uncomfortable because, one, I had to like feel my body in that moment in yoga and connect with my breath. I could not connect with my breath. And I was like the whole time. And I was, of course, judging and shaming myself, like, gotta get it together. Like, you gotta get into the flow of this. Like, and so it was that discomfort that brought me back. And it brought me back again. And because it was a challenge to me, like, ooh, I can get this. I can get this. I can work on this. And then that connection with mind and body and soul is what drove me into deeper work into who I am. And then I started a meditation practice. It was just a natural progression of things, you know, of how things happened. And so I started a meditation practice, and that was really hard as fuck. I was like, I can't even sit here for 3 minutes without like feeling so uncomfortable in my body. But again, it was the challenge of it that just kept me coming back for more, because there was this innate wisdom that knew this is what I needed. I needed to slow down. I needed to connect with myself, and the emotions started to flow. Up until this point, I never really looked back on my past childhood and my traumas. I didn't want to go there, actually. I was like, that's the past. Like, who wants to deal with past? I'm looking forward to my bright future. I don't need to deal with that. And it was one day I went to this yoga festival. It was 6 years ago. And I came across this young psychic. And I was like, oh, this is interesting. Maybe I should get a reading. So my friend signed up for a reading, and I waited to get a reading from her. She did a little mini reading for me, and I was so intrigued. And what she had said to me was, you are an empath and you need to ground within your body. And I've heard the word empath before, but I never considered myself a highly sensitive person. I was actually the opposite of that, because I have friends and I have family that are highly sensitive people who show their emotion. And that was always fucking aggravating to me. And I was like, just get your shit together. This is like the voice that led me through my life. Just get your shit together. Like, what are you doing? Like, just move through it, move past it, keep moving, move faster, don't feel it. And so she said I was an empath, and I was like, what? And so I booked a session with her, and like a month later, I went and did a session. And this is one of the most defining moments of my life, is sitting down with this young psychic. And she just channeled for an hour and a half. She channeled my guides. She channeled past lives. But the most profound thing that she said to me was, you need to heal your past childhood trauma. And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not doing that. I don't need to do that. I've moved past that. And she says, your guides are telling me that this is what you need to work on now. And I was like, how do I do that? I don't even know how to show emotion. Like, where do I start? She suggested that I start with maybe therapy. And that was a very foreign subject to me. And it was very uncomfortable. But I knew within my soul she was right.
Yeah.
And And she told me, this is going to take several years for you to evolve and move through your past trauma. And my words to her were, you don't know me. I move really quick. It's not going to take me. It's not going to take me years. And she just nodded at me and smiled like, okay. So I went down this path of going into therapy and feeling and talking about my past experiences as a child of physical, sexual abuse, abandonment, and it was really hard. And I remember sitting in therapy and just crying and crying and crying. And I would apologize to the therapist because I was so shameful for crying in front of her, because I wasn't that person. I was this strong, stoic person that just could beat out anything. And so through this evolution, I started to go deeper and deeper within. And I actually started working with this young psychic that made this incredible impact on me on creating a soulful business that was right for me. And that's what led me into the spiritual realm and the spiritual development of things. And I knew within my soul that I was onto something. And this was nothing like any other business that I had ever had. This was different. This was meaningful. And this was part of my soul's desire, my soul's work, and part of my spiritual evolution as a human being here.
Yeah.
And so it was last year, I decided to take an intuitive practitioner certification through a local psychic shamanic healer who is very well known in the area. And it was a 6-month course. And I was all in, like I jumped all in. I was so intrigued and so
at home, like at home,
teachings.
it sounded like,
I was at home. I was like, yes, this is it. And so there came the part of the section of the teachings. She was talking about the Akashic records. And I heard of the Akashic records in the past. And every time I heard that word Akashic records, I felt this buzz in my body. And I don't know if anything has ever been presented to you, or you've seen or heard something and you just get this hit, like this intuitive hit. I didn't know what that was, but when we started talking about the Akashic records, I was like, wow, this is it. I don't know why I'm getting this hit, but there's something to this. And I just dove into every book and every podcast and everything. And I meditated, and I was actually entering my own records at the time through meditation, and I didn't know it. And so in this training, we learned how to shamanic journey, and we had to didn't have to, but it was kind of a requirement of the class, which I wanted to shamanic journey every single day. And for me, a lot of this was about self-inquiry. And when the Akashic records came up, I was like, what is this? Why am I getting this intuitive hit? And I heard Spirit tell me, this is your work. This is your work. Start doing readings. And I was like, what? Me? Who the hell am I to do psychic readings? Like, hell no. And so I had some hesitancy and some resistance to that, but it kept coming up and coming up and coming up. And they kept reminding me of that pivotal point that I was in 6 years or 5 years prior with that young psychic, and the change and the difference that she made in me. And, they spoke to me and said, this change and this transformation that you've gone through, you are going to help other people do that. And I was
you knew like how powerful that was for you. So you're like, how can I say no?
How can I say no? How can I say no? And I've learned along this path, when Spirit speaks, I listen. Even if it doesn't make logical sense, I listen and I follow through. And that's the most important thing. Like when you when we did your reading, which I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah.
And you were texting me and sending me voice messages and like, hey, this is happening and that's happening. Following the guidance and trusting that that guidance is right for you is the biggest job that you could do when you're tapping into your intuition or getting psychic hits. We all are psychic in our own way. It just takes us to slow down and set an intention to really tap into who we are, to uncover the rubble of what's inside of us, to tap into that intuition within us. We all have it. We all have it. We all have the inner wisdom. And I think now more than ever, we're being called to really come back home. Like we had talked before we started.
Mm-hmm.
I feel this deep calling to teach people to come back home to themselves, because it wasn't too long ago where I sat here and I had no idea who the hell I was.
Yeah. Yeah. You know,
And
so many of us, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but so many of us get so caught up into the avoidance, the masculine avoidance, which leads to the burnout, right? So would you agree that when what I wrote down was the masculine versus the feminine, obviously, you know, that I know that that's something that you talk about a lot, and why that spiritual business felt so different and seemed so like, like this is nothing that I've done before, because it's more of that feminine flow. And you, for so many years, were operating inside of that masculine, do, go, I must, but it's also was your survival. That's all you knew. Right. And that's where that rubble comes in, that you were just like underneath this pile. I visualize in this pile of concrete, and you just kind of breaking free from all of that, you know. And I agree with you so much in the sense that slowing down is something that we all have to do. And when we do, it's like you get these tiny little hits, these tiny little like, oh, and you think that you don't think anything of it, but now I write it down. Like I heard something this morning as I was coming down the steps, and like, oh, okay, I hear you. All right, I got it. I'll write it down. You know, but now it's taking action upon that, right?
Right.
So many times we'll like hear these things and we're like, oh, you know what? I remember thinking that 5 years ago.
Yeah. And, you know, anytime that a thought comes through to me, I first say, is this mine? Does this belong to me? And then I act. This is funny. I'm home alone for the last couple of days. And of course, you know, I don't have people in my house, and the dogs bark about everything outside. And the dog barked, and I got this thought, did you lock that garage door? And I was like, yeah, it's locked. I know I locked it. And then I was like, the thought didn't come through for no reason. I'm going to get my ass out of bed, and I'm going to go check to see if I locked that garage door. Sure shit, the garage door is not locked. I lock my doors every night, all of my doors. Now, that's not to say something was going to happen, right? But when the thought comes through, I just take action. I don't even question it anymore.
Don't even question, because then you'd be in a situation of, I had the thought last night,
I knew it.
Shoulda. I knew I shoulda. I shoulda, coulda, woulda. Right.
Yeah, exactly. And that's how our intuition works. Is coming through thoughts or symbols or synchronicities. Mm-hmm. And it happens all around us all of the time. It's just a matter. You know, in the past, I was moving so damn fast. There's no way I could have ever tuned into that inner voice. No way.
No, I agree. Because I lived my life for like that, you know, for many years. Run, go, do. It was just a coping mechanism, avoidance, you know, and then getting drunk, you know, just wanting to numb and avoid and not face the truth and not face the shame and the guilt and all of the crap. It was just go, work hard in the gym, eat a potato, you know, you know, like literally I was like running myself into the ground, literally. And then, you know, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia, all these adrenal issue, whatever, all this crap going on. And then, like you said, like with you, it took you landing in the hospital, having that near-death experience, which I remember getting that text, by the way, Jamie messaging me. I'm like, oh my God, like that was very scary, and so it's sometimes it takes these moments for us, unfortunately, but thank God you listened, and started to go down that path, because we always have a choice. We always have that choice.
And it's been a progression. It's been a slow progression. And I just have to keep reminding myself, I have so much shit that's been buried within because I didn't deal with that for 35 years.
Yes.
I have to slowly unpeel the layers back and not feeling shame or guilt around putting myself into this position, because sometimes people can think, well, God, I just put myself into position. It's funny when we start to listen to the conversations we have with ourselves and how cruel we can be with ourselves. And it's just being gentle with ourselves and noticing the thought and letting it go and being okay.
Mm-hmm.
Being okay.
When you say that you hear spirit, because I know we have these different voyances or however you word it, right? So when you say that you hear spirit or spirit told me, do you get it as an inner knowing? Do you hear a voice? Is it your thoughts? Like, how does it come across for you?
So it comes through as an inner knowing, but also I feel like I have conversation with spirit in my head. So it does come through thoughts, comes through an inner knowing.
Mm-hmm.
And let me tell you something, not to go off topic,
Mm-mm.
but when the pandemic was approaching us, and I heard the news report on the TV about this China virus outbreak, I said out loud, I wasn't watching the news, I was just kind of in the background. I said, that shit is man-made. They're trying to kill people. Out loud. I just knew. So when it came time of all the shutdowns, was it shocking? Yes. But I knew the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I knew the truth.
Mm-hmm.
I knew it from the beginning. And as hard as the pandemic was to go through for everybody, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, all of it, just hanging on and connecting with that inner wisdom got me through this period of being very strong and being very strong for my children and for the people around me.
Yeah.
Because I had this inner knowing along the way of what was going down and what was happening. And I'm not saying at all that the virus is fake. I know the virus is real. It harmed and killed a lot of people. That's not what I'm saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I know our bodies innately have the ability to heal itself. And when you live in fear and you live in anxiety and stress, you're the professional, it lowers your immune system.
Yeah.
So all I could do is stay calm, stay peaceful, stay connected, and just be comforting to the people around me.
Yeah. And
because I knew we were going to get through it.
You knew, you just knew that it was just a small bump in the road. It was kind of like, I think before I even hit record, or maybe I even said this after I hit record, was the reading that you did for me in any of these types of readings, but just having this relationship with whatever you desire to call it, whether it's spirit, the universe, God, everybody has their own thing.
All of it. Yeah, all of it.
Yeah, it's this, the way I describe it is I never, ever, ever trusted myself, and I never trusted others. But I have never had a more trusting relationship with anyone or anything ever in my life than I do with the universe.
Yeah.
Kind of emotional.
You know what? I have to diddle that.
Yeah.
1,000%.
Yeah.
1,000%. Because when you finally meet God, I can remember when I met God for the first time in meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I see you getting emotional, and I feel emotional too. Because this is true. I also did not trust myself and did not trust the people around me.
Right.
And this inner wisdom and this connection with source when you build that bond and that relationship with source, you know that you can trust no matter what.
Yep. Yep. And it's a feeling that I want everybody to feel.
Absolutely.
That's the thing.
Yes,
because
yes.
when you don't have that trust and you're just, I lived in survival and scarcity for most of my life. And once I found that feeling, sorry, yeah, it's
okay.
emotional for me.
Yes.
Because it was the most loving, comforting, peaceful feeling ever. And so it's like I tried to tap into that as much as I possibly can. So it's kind of like, when I saw that you were doing these readings, I'm like, oh, I have to get one of these readings. Because why? Because I seek that comfort and I need that trust, because there's a lot of uncertainties with a lot of things in our life all the time, right? But I know that I can always go back to that. But it also, of course, as you know, there's all these other practices like the meditations and the journaling and being grounded and all this. But so many people out there just like, I don't have time for that shit. But they don't know what they're missing out on.
Yeah, 1000%. And my connection within the Akashic Records, and I told you this when we did our readings, my purpose is solely for healing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
To heal, to allow I'm not doing the healing. It's the guidance that comes through that allows the person on the other end to receive that healing. And that is my sole purpose of doing these readings for people, is to give them guidance, clarity, which leads to healing.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they can feel empowered within themselves.
Yeah, there you go. It's that certainty and empowerment that is so needed. It is so needed.
And this isn't something that's outside of them. This is within. I'm tapping in to the wisdom within them, within the spirit within them, and tapping in and connecting and channeling with their higher self. This is all within them already.
Yes.
And so getting a reading, like a psychic reading, might be feel like kind of woo-woo and bullshit to people. But until you experience that, you don't know how empowered you feel after that. And I'm sure you can speak to that.
Oh, 1000%. That's why I get so emotional, is because there's that feeling of, I got this, I can do this, because I know that you have my back. I know that someone has my back. And it's like, I know that you're there, even though I don't necessarily see, this isn't a tangible thing, but at least I know it's something that I can tap into all day long whenever I desire. But it's also that belief, having that belief and certainty that this is true, that this is actually authentic, and that this is really real. And, that's why I wanted to share you with the audience, because I want people to not look at it as like, oh, okay, it's so woo-woo, weird bullshit. All right. Yeah, anybody can tell me that,
Right.
And that's just that lower level of thinking where they not to be judgy in any way, shape, or form, but it's just the conditioning that we have been raised with, or, that we tune into, that we're choosing to tune into. But there's this whole other vibration and this whole other way of being. And, you could probably agree with this, that there are moments where I have waves of fear that come in, like this past couple of weeks, for some crazy reason, which I think it has something to do energetically, and maybe you might agree or disagree, but a lot of my friends that are in that spiritual realm are like, hang tight, find your peace, and stay fucking strong, because we are in something right now. And I'm like, holy shit, we are, because I haven't felt like this in years.
Yes, we are. And it will be like this all year. And the best thing that you can do is ground into your daily practices and commit. My word for this year is commitment to self. Because being an empath and a highly sensitive person, and coming from the trauma that I've came from, my sometimes automatic response is to put other people first. And many women are like that.
Yes.
Many people are like that. To feel, so Chelsea is the psychic who I connected with. through my readings with her, she always assured me, your children are fine. They don't need you as much as you think they need you. Because my thought always went back because of my trauma being abandoned as a child. My children have always been my number one, and I've always self-sacrificed for my children because that's what I thought I needed to do.
Yep.
And looking back on that, so if anybody is listening who is raising young kids right now, know that your maternal love and your support doesn't mean that you have to sacrifice yourself for that.
Yeah.
Because when you start to connect with yourself and you start to make yourself a priority every damn day, physically, mentally, emotionally, energetically, spiritually, that's when you start to grow as a person. You can give even more to your family, to your loved ones, to your partner, because you've done that for yourself first. It's like that saying where they say, like, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Yeah, or the oxygen mask thing too, right? You know,
it's true. But it took years of me becoming unconditioned from this habitual pattern of feeling shame and guilt around doing things for myself. It was so deeply embedded within me. I just had to keep chipping away at it. And it takes time. Healing takes time.
It can take years. Yeah.
Years. Yeah. And I feel like I'm finally on the other side of that. And I am strong in who I am. But I also, again, this year, I was like, commitment. I will commit to myself.
My statement is, you have what it takes. That's all I keep saying. You have what it takes, Kelly. Just stay strong and stay the course. Just stay the fucking course, because that fear can get into you, whoever's listening. And if you listen to that, that is when you buy into the bullshit. And that's not your truth. That's not the truth. And so it is, I know for me, I've had to feel it. Where is this coming from? Where did this stem from? Is this mine? Is this true? Yes, this is some of my shadow work I need to do. Okay, let's dive into this. So it is. It takes that inner work and that peace and feeling through it. Sometimes I have to slow down more, and so it's just really listening to that inner compass and that inner knowing, like you had said,
going through a spiritual, sorry.
Go ahead.
Going through a spiritual awakening isn't, and I've talked about this many times, isn't always rainbows and butterflies. It's sometimes the opposite.
Yeah.
It's the blood. It's the pain. It's the stabbing pain in your heart. And it's actually looking at the dark shadows of yourself so you can transcend that and you can transmute that into something higher and greater to serve the higher good.
Yes, I love that you said that. Good. Transcend so that we can serve. So something that I just came across recently, which is basically what you just said, is that I know that I have been served this shit sandwich these last couple of weeks of not feeling so great and feeling these weird feelings and all this stuff, because I know that it means that I have to work through it in order to pull out the creativeness that we are here to do, right? The creativity. So it means heal and serve, meaning, create something that can help others in their journey as well. So I know that's to be true. Now, could you tell Kelly Dunlap that 5 or 6 years ago, or 8, 10 years ago, or even 20 years ago when we knew each other? I'd be like, you're fucking crazy. Give me the beer. No. You know what I mean? Like, let's go drink. I don't want to feel this anymore. Let's just go party. Fuck it. But it's so true, but you're right. And I'm so glad that you brought that up, because you have to be ready to just surrender to the yuckiness of it, but also know that feeling that I was just talking about that got me so emotional a few minutes ago, it's so worth it. And it is so worth it being on the other side. And like you said, it's painful. It's nauseating at times. It's physically painful at times. Like there are all of these things, but it is so worth it. But I wanted to ask you, if there's somebody new to, like, let's say they have that burning belly, as I call it, which was, ooh, I know I'm being called to kind of dive into this, but I don't know if I should get a Akashic Records reading. Maybe I should just start with something. I don't know if I could do meditation. I don't even know where to go for, a yoga class. What would you say would be like very ground level beginner 101 to just get started on something? Would you say it's journaling, deep breathing, closing your eyes? What would you say?
I would say meditation all day long. 1000% hands down meditation. And there's different forms of meditation. And I've talked about this. For me, guided meditations was like my gateway into deeper meditations, because it was more of an active type of meditation where I could listen to the person's voice guiding me through this visualization and tapping into my body and my breath. I had some direction there instead of just sitting in silence and trying to be quiet. That's how I first started. And I was like, this is such bullshit. This is crap. Like, this isn't working. I feel worse than I did before I started.
Time. Yeah,
I'm wasting my time. The guided meditations was my gateway into
I would agree with that.
Regular practice. And so I actually decided to create a bundle of 5 guided meditations. They're personally guided by me. I loved doing them, putting them together.
Yeah.
And I have that available on my website if somebody's interested in that.
We can put that.
Most of the meditations are less than 10 minutes. So you can download the meditations on your device. And while you're in the school pickup line, most of them are less than 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Just to get centered, grounded, and back into your body, to feel into what it is that you're feeling. Just get connected. And sometimes just becoming grounded within ourselves, because a lot of times our minds are all over the place. The monkey mind is just all out there. And when that happens, we like jump out of our bodies and we're all over the place feeling frantic and rushed.
Yes, it's that stress response. The nervous system just takes over. Yes, exactly.
And just coming back into your body and taking a couple minutes to do that would be the difference between greeting your child with a hug and a kiss when they come out of school, or being like, get in the fucking car, we're in a hurry, we gotta go, I gotta get here, I gotta get there. It just taking just
isn't that minutes. The truth? It's so true. And I love that. So we'll make sure we put that in the show notes for sure.
Yeah, so, I'll give you my website.
Yeah, before we wrap up, so I wanted to talk about my experience with the Akashic reading with you, because I think that some people could benefit from this and they could, reach out to you as well. So I have had many types of readings in the past. This by far was very unique and it was different, very insightful. And it was interesting in the sense that we did it through Zoom, which is completely 1000% effective. But it was the first time that I had ever experienced a prayer in the beginning. And then I just sat very relaxed and just, closed my eyes. And then I believe Nikki did the same. And because I think you get a strong visualization, correct, when you were doing these readings, right?
When I go in, it's a combination of things, but it's mainly, mainly a knowing, a conversation that comes through to me. So when there is channeled information that is downloaded, I will continue to ask questions in my mind with your higher self and your spirit team, and to get further guidance and further clarity so I can relay that to you. I do get visions, but it's mainly comes through as a knowing in a conversation with spirit.
Yeah.
I do receive for their visions.
It was super cool. I actually have my notes here from our reading. Actually, I keep it right here because I refer to them sometimes. Yeah, of course. But yes, and it was so interesting because some of the things that you had told me was to focus on my podcast, which, you know, here we are doing a podcast, but that was something that I had really set intention for. And that was just a validation for me to keep doing it. And you were just like, think of like top people that you want to have on your podcast. Don't be afraid, you know, just kind of really focus on that. You had said, networking and collaborations was something to focus on. You said that you could see me presenting, like in a business suit and public speaking. And that had been coming up over and over and over and over again. And it's interesting because, again, it's still coming my way, but now I can kind of see exactly. I was thinking in my mind, that public speaking means grander scale, but it really doesn't. I just need to get my ass out there at like yoga studios and Whole Foods and libraries and community centers and all of this stuff. Like, it didn't even dawn on me. I was having a conversation with my mentor and we were talking about just different things. And she said, you know, I just feel the nudge to tell you this. And she said, you need to go to like Whole Foods and get that little newspaper that they have. And you need to start talking to these groups. And I'm like, there's the public speaking piece of it. Like, it doesn't have to be on this grand thing. Maybe it could lead to that, but it's the starting of it. And I love being around people. I love it. So why am I not doing that? So that was actually really cool. You had mentioned something about the coaches, and that is definitely on my radar to expand into coaching coaches, and that you had felt that that was something that you would foresee me doing. And then there was also the good old red book. And I was just like, what in the world is a red book? So I'm thinking literally red book. Well, then, as I had shared with you, one of my other spiritual mentors had said a red vehicle was coming up. Red, right? So then another one, I mentioned both of these pieces to her. She said, I know exactly what it is. Red is fire. It is the element. The book is knowledge. And it's the vehicle that is going to take you to your next level. And I'm like, oh my God, talk about teamwork.
Boom.
So I thought that was so cool. And then you did mention something about travel, and with related to the public speaking. So again, like that could, you know, I could start in these smaller little capacities that are local, but who knows who I could land into. And you said something about travel and public speaking. And you also predicted a coach that was going to be, you know, like in a, like just a better vibration for me or what have you. You said, are you considering a new coach? And I'm like, well, you know, that's interesting because I kind of have been, you know, so there was just so many cool things. And I was just so like, I think I remember writing a review right after saying like, I just felt so, what was the word? Like certain, or it was just really like, guided. It was just like such a good compass for me, you know, like, okay.
Yeah, you had said you texted me and said, I feel like I just got a big hug from my higher self.
Yes, that's what,
and that's the purpose of the reading.
Yeah.
This wisdom is flowing through you and just giving you more clarity.
Yes. And that's exactly how I felt, was like, okay, I'm staying the course. I'm doing the right thing. And it just is, it just is so good. So if you are at all curious about this reading, make sure that you reach out to Nikki and get yourself one of these readings, because it's really fascinating and it's fun and it's relaxing at the same time. You know, you're just kind of chilling and she's tapping into you. And then she comes back and tells you, hey, this is what I felt, heard, saw. And it's just so cool. It's so cool.
Absolutely. So if you guys are interested in a reading, you can visit my website. It's nikkiheals.com. So NIKKIHEALS.com. And you can find information on there about the meditations. I have a free guide, 5 things that are blocking your intuition, which is very
Perfect.
interesting. And of course, if you want to book an Akashic record reading, you can do that on the website too.
Yeah, no, I think that would be just, all of those resources are going to be great for anybody that is just curious, like seriously. And if you're curious, that means you're being nudged. It means you're being guided. If you're listening to this, that means that this is meant for you to hear. Like Nikki says, there's no coincidences. There just isn't. Well, let's also mention too, like, God, we forgot about this a couple days ago. She sends me a message and says, I felt just a nudge to send this to you. And I'm like, oh my God, like this topic has been on my head. And I think that spirit, like she's saying, spirit is just so amazing, because it was almost like, here, let me lift off this burden for you for a second. Check this out, because this could give you some ideas of what you've been, racking your brain about all day long. It was exhausting me. And I was just like, this is crazy. And then that same day, when she sent me that, I was, taking my dog to the groomer. I walk into the groomer and I realize that my groomer is basically related to this gentleman that I've known for many years. I've known her for many years, never connected the two, but he just keeps coming up for me. I'm like, okay, I need to reach out to him. This is crazy, but no coincidence.
No
So there was something there. There's something there, because he just keeps coming up for me, and he's in this kind of spiritual type of stuff too. So he must be, there's something that I need to learn from him. There's something I need to hear from him. It's something.
Yes, I agree. It's, I believe in fate.
Yeah.
And I believe in destiny. And these little hits lead you to fate and lead you to your destiny. Mm-hmm. I do, just before we leave, I do want to speak on, I know there's times when people feel like stuck, lost, fearful, and especially with the situation that happened this week at Michigan State. Mm-hmm. And just people feeling very hopeless sometimes. And that's completely normal. We're human beings. We're not always going to live in this state of like bliss. And the message that continues to come through to me is, when we touched on this, you are not alone. Mm-hmm. You are never alone. Even if you feel alone in this human physical experience, you're not alone. Spirit is always with you. So just know that.
Mm-hmm. And thank you for sharing that, because again, as I had mentioned these last couple of weeks, I'm like, this does not feel good, but I know that I'm not alone. And I just talk out loud and just ask for guidance and, please, show me in a way that I can understand this, or please lift this burden from me, or what is the lesson that I need to know, or what is it that I'm not seeing? And I slowed down. And it was interesting, because yesterday I had this thing just come to me, and I was like, oh, okay, that's all. And then, it's like I woke up today feeling just so much lighter, because I just had to shift my perspective, because I was thinking in one way, but then I was like, oh, I got this. Like, all right. Well, thank you.
And spirit works like that, because it'll just come through in divine timing.
Right. And I just said out loud, thank you. I always look up and I always say, thank you for the shift in perspective, because that's all I needed. I just needed the shift. And just saying thank you, you guys, all day long. I'll say thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Just thank you so much. It just, sincere gratitude really is also a really great way to start as well, I think. Just really
a lot of my prayers begin with thank you for showing me a better way in this situation. Thank you for whatever it is that, I'm looking for clarity on. I'll thank Spirit as if it's already happened.
Mm-hmm. Yes. As if it's already happened. I think that's how we'll end our conversation. I love it. Well, thank you so much. This was beautiful, lovely, as I knew it would be. And it's interesting, because I knew I had invited you to be on a podcast a couple years ago, but I always know this, that when the timing is right, that's when we'll have the conversation that we're supposed to have. Right.
Yeah.
I think it maybe 2-3 years ago. I'm not even sure, but I never pushed it, and it was just like, we talked about it, whatever. And then, here we are, which is fantastic.
I'm sure I was in the thick of something, in the thick of working through stuff. And
right.
Divine timing.
Exactly. So I love that when, this sort of thing happens, you're not the only one. Like there was this one gal, it literally took us a year because it kept getting delayed. But then we realized why it was being delayed and why we had to have the conversation a year later. So same thing, just like with you went to the training, did my reading, and here we are. So that had to happen,
Yeah,
so which is cool. So I love you, my dear friend. Thank you so much.
So much.
Yes.
Take care of yourself. I want to thank you for having me.
Yes.
And I'm sure we'll be chatting. We'll be chatting again.
Yes, absolutely. Soon. Yes. Well, thank you so much for tuning in, you guys. And I will have all of Nikki's information for you in the show notes. And please make sure that you take a screenshot and you can tag both of us in your social media. We would so appreciate that. So thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you love what you heard, please be sure to share it with me by leaving a review. If you aren't already following me on social media, come find me on Facebook by searching Kelly Dunlap, or come join me in my Master Your Mindset and Metabolism Facebook group by going to kellydunlap.com/group. I cannot wait to connect with you on the next episode.